All right, let's get started with this thing. So today we are doing a MEP demo day. So what does that mean to the layperson? Essentially, I'm Bruce Johnson. I'm your host today. I'm a senior MEP technical specialist for ATG. The end goal today is to try and do as much of a high-level overview in an hour as possible to let people know what is in the MEPPP and some of the other tools that we like each individual firm to have to be able to do MEP well. So most people understand and know that the MEP world is fraught with all kinds of problems. The out-of-the-box templates don't work well. A lot of the content and the families don't work well. Slope piping is a bear. So basically with the MEPPP, the product from CTC called the MEP3, however you want to name that or call it, it's a MEP Productivity Pack. And that's the main thing we're going to go over today because there's a new version that came out about 3 weeks ago, 3 to 4 weeks ago. And there's still a few holes in it that I'm trying to work out with CTC, but overall, the base of the pack and what it is and everything that's in it is spectacular. For anybody who's ever worked with out-of-the-box content, we want to have a quick discussion on kind of what those things are and why we would decide to use those. So our end goal for me on my PowerPoint here today is a high-level overview of the new MEPPP with Q&A. So what makes that the productivity pack actually worth it? Well, why would you spend money on that? So I'll try to give you a quick view version of what that is. So anybody who loves the idea, just get back with us sometime after the webinar. Find an appropriate salesperson to talk to based on your territory, and we will spend actual real-time live with you and actually do a real demo, discuss workflows and things that you actually are interested in, why these things are better than what would come from Autodesk direct out of the box. Then there's integration with other CTC tools. One of the things that's probably one of the most challenging items for me is when we do a really, really good demo of the MEPPP and everybody says, we love that, we want that. They open their checkbook and they write us the check that they need from their budget this year to get the tools. And the next thing they know is they try to use the pack and bring in outside content and things like that. And those don't necessarily work with all of our schedules because the parameters are different. So things like that are challenging, but we have other CTC tools specifically to deal with those challenges as well. It's additional software. It doesn't come with the pack. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So, you know, hey, if I'm going to make a purchase of the pack, let's look at the whole CTC offering because those things actually are very important and will save you lots of time. Even with the pack tools being really, really good, you're still going to sometimes need outside content. And when that stuff doesn't schedule or doesn't talk well with your other parts and pieces, that's usually not a good thing. So we want to give you all the tools, or at least the opportunity to see all the tools that will actually enhance your workflows and better your performance company-wide. Even if you don't choose the pack for whatever reason, the other tools are also very important and things that we want to at least show you so you have an informed decision-based making process with your design teams and make sure that everybody knows what those are and what the benefits are. So other things would be workflow options found nowhere else. We do have things that will increase your workflow capabilities, make fewer iterations and design changes if, for instance, architecture is not going to do changes every single day until the last day. If you can count on some of the data and work in areas that aren't going to change massively, some of our workflows will actually produce huge time savings by using the pack. So I have a next slide is my MEP Plus. What are those pluses? MEPPP is a starter project and content that includes shared parameters, smart schedules, details, pre-made views, and sheets to automate project setup and delivery. So that's the 20,000 foot level. That's what it is, right? It's not a piece of software. It's actually a starter template and everything that's built into that template that supports great workflows inside of Revit. Having smart schedules saves you the time of building those on your own. So if you did like an air handling unit schedule and you've got 150 parameters in it, for instance, and you were going to build that on your own, you first have to make your shared parameter file, load those parameters into families, and then be able to build schedules with that family data and those parameters built into it. That can take weeks just for one schedule. We've got over 300 schedules inside the pack. So potentially 2 years of schedule building already pre-done. Things like that are huge productivity gains. And even if you have to do some tweaks to them, it's not too hard to do that. And we can help you with that if that was something that you guys would need assistance with in the future. We do that as BIM consulting services as well through ATG. So BIM Project Suite lets you further annotate, automate, set up, bringing in outside content, making schedules work correctly with outside content, manipulating data in a spreadsheet format, even outside of Revit. So you can actually look at the Revit database, export data, shove that into an Excel spreadsheet, hand that off to somebody who doesn't even use Revit. Maybe your master engineer or the guy with the stamp is going to manipulate that data. We can do that and bring that data back in, or we can do it natively inside of Revit without even exporting it. If you're the power user, it's going to do all those edits. So depending on your roles and whatnot, the BIM Project Suite has a lot of automation tools for all users that would be done normally across the board throughout the project lifecycle. BIM Manager Suite is more specifically for BIM managers looking for ways to automate processes like batch processing families, manipulating shared parameter files, adding to or removing from, looking for duplicates. Things like that are high-end in the Manager Suite that save BIM managers lots and lots of time, potentially days, weeks, months, or even years. BIM Batch Suite is an automated process tool for plotting, upgrading projects, upgrading families, and sending out clean models to anybody who wants a Revit model, but you want to strip out views and sheets and things like that that you don't need to send. They're already in a PDF format for reference. You only want to leave like a group of overall views or something like that. That's a fast way to do that without doing it manually. So the last plus is the Hive CMS. That's our content management system. Through CTC, it basically will let you store just about any kind of a digital file. It can also store Revit families. It can store Revit native system family types like walls, stairs, doors, windows, duct styles, conduit styles, things like that that are system-based families only. You can add details, you can add schedules, you can add sheets that don't have any model view or model elements in them. So things like the only thing that doesn't index natively that I know of inside of Revit would be legends. And legends you could put onto a sheet and then index the sheet, bring the sheet in, maybe call the sheet X or legend X or something like that. Delete the sheet, but the legend stays behind, right? So there's some extra stuff in there that can be done, even on the things that aren't the truly native content types. So being able to do that inside of a separate program, so it's not even a Revit plugin anymore, it's actually its own content management system that has capabilities of staying open on your maybe a second monitor or something like that, being able to demand load content directly into your Revit session without having it pre-populated in a template, without having to purge a bunch of stuff because somebody loaded way too much. Being able to find the right content at the right time is really, really nice. There's also some tools in the Hive CMS, which are data analytics, which can actually, at the time of save and sync, suck information out of the person's local file and throw that onto a server. And then from that server location in the cloud, start parsing that data and find out, like if they were at Starbucks and had a 20-minute save and sync time, but everybody else has got 30 seconds save and sync. You might go find that person and beat them up because they were on a very, very slow internet connection and nobody else could save and sync while that person was doing it. So there's management things like that on the BIM management side that are also quite nice. Being able to interrogate your Hive CMS library and find out how much of that content is actually being used, how many people are actually using that content from Hive, how fast are they finding it, how many searches have they done. All that stuff's being indexed in Hive automatically if you install a little plugin tool for that purpose. So lots of good stuff on the pluses. All of these together are a massive system of time savings across the board, across the entire company. So these are all things that I always either recommend seeing and or integrating into an MEP firm. If you're an MEP plus other stuff, architecture and structure as multidisciplinary, those tools also have other functions for architects and structural engineers as well. So those are all things to look at and find useful if you can. And if you're really, really nice, some of our salespeople might even give you a really good deal where they bundle all this stuff together. We also add things like training and BIM consulting services to those. So we can talk individually with each individual firm about what your needs are and how to make either one piece or all pieces part of your integrated workflows in the future. So enough PowerPoint. This is probably the longest PowerPoint I've done in all my webinars so far. Usually I try to keep it under 3 to 5 minutes or so, but went a little long there with pre-discussion. So this is where I say I'm done with the pre-discussion. I'm going to actually jump into the tools, right? So in this case, this is the start page of the MEPPP. This is all one file with MEP included in all of it. Typically, we have a project setup portion here where we have the architectural, say, floor plans, 3D views, and sections. We have a basement, we have a roof, and we have 8 levels. So we have 10 levels total already predefined. This is a RVT file. It is an actual Revit project, inclusive of all work sets. All the Revit links and things like that are all inclusive in there already. So you don't have to like go in a starter project and delete levels and copy monitor. We actually take these levels that are existing here and turn those into our real levels to match architecture typically. And then from there, any levels that we don't use, there's a Dynamo script that lets us purge levels that we're not going to use. It wipes out those levels. It wipes out the existing views of all those extra levels. So if I only had a 4-level building, I'd want to get rid of 5 through 8. I would do that with the Dynamo script and have it purge those plus all of the other view types that are in there based on those levels. It'll also grab all the sheets that are not applied to those views as well. So I just did that in a training class a few weeks ago and it worked out rather well. Previous Dynamo scripts, not so much, but this one actually is pretty refined and seems to do what it's supposed to do. We do have sections in our model. So if I were to look at my project setup, this one actually comes a little better than what we've had previously. It actually has some match lines in there for north, south, east, and west. So a couple of those. It has a bunch of extra scope boxes in there for project setup. So things like that will literally let us move a scope box of the type, and any enlarged plans are already pre-made in this product. Will automatically resize to the crop boundaries and resize all the call outs and things like that for enlarged plans. Those are already pre-done just by moving a scope box and either expanding or contracting it to its actual size. There are scope boxes for north, south, east, and west. So areas of the building, we can move those around. If I was going to have an area A, B, C, D on a long, wide building or something like that, I would just rename those scope boxes appropriately to the proper area names, move them over the areas of the building that I need. And then those views would be associated to all the views that are already pre-drawn in my model. So if I look at my working views, for instance, under HVAC, floor plans, I have existing views. I don't have the existing area views for north, south, east, and west in there, but I do have the overall plans pre-built. So whether I choose to duplicate the views and add in the area plans or whatnot, or use what's existing for just a standard small building with a single footprint, I have an overall scope box for that. So if architecture comes in, say up here, I just take the overall box and move it, move the existing scope boxes of specific call out plans or enlarged plans over the areas that they go over, certain room types or whatnot. And then that's done. My entire project setup for a small building of this size, probably less than 60 minutes using the template if I've done it a few times. So there's a template file that's a PDF that comes with this that actually shows you exactly how to do all the setup portions and how to configure that. So makes it super easy once you've done it a few times to actually do all the setup. So under my working views, these are all design views. So I have HVAC, lighting, mechanical piping, plumbing, power, symbols, and systems. All of my symbols are on a separate design option. Oops, wrong one. Symbols are in construction documents. There's multiple views to access those in certain areas. So I'm going to stay away from some and go to others. So electrical symbols, for example, if I go in here and look at my symbol sheet, I've got all my abbreviations, I've got all my symbol types. All these are done in a design option, and the reason for that is all these symbols are actually placed as real objects, the real 3D symbol or real families inside of my Revit project. They're all there individually placed inside of Revit. So in that design option, they don't exist in the real world of my model. They're in an alternate universe, so they don't count in schedules, which is good. But I do have the real actual object on a real floor plan at 1/8 inch equals a foot. So every time I'm in my model, all of my elements that I'm showing here are exactly the same. Some of these even have description tags where the description is an actual tag rather than just a piece of text. So inside of a family, I can have that description reference and actually tag these in my symbols library and have it autofill rather than me having to type something out and maybe from project to project have that be a different thing that somebody types. different engineer wants it ordered differently or something like that. If it's just a tag on a description, all those are filled out easily and naturally, and they're all the same, which makes me very much a happy camper about standards, because people can't change those automatically without saying, well, delete that tag and put in text instead. So little things like that are great features inside the pack. Let's see, what's my next item? Try to keep myself on track and online. That's a little bit about project setup. The rest of the browser organization. All my construction documents are already preset. So like things like lighting, ceiling plans. If I pick on one of those, I can open that up and see just that level or whatnot and see that it's already been placed on a sheet. So in my project setup, all the construction documents are already pre-referenced to sheets. That's another time saver there inside of my project. Some of the things that they've done with our families, from the old version to the new, all the families that are in here have the ability to be unhosted as elements. So if I were to look at, say, let's see, I'm seeing an X-ray view into all my stuff here. So try to pick an object. If I were to pick on a air terminal, for instance, there's an option here to say, I want this to be suspended above level at a certain height. I can do that with basically any object in the entire pack now, where they used to be only air terminals and light fixtures in the previous version. I could set those unhosted elements in there at whatever elevation that I want. Now I can do that with duplex outlets that are typically hosted to walls. They don't have to be hosted to walls anymore. Same thing with occupancy sensors and fire alarm devices, and all those family types that come in our content package are all set so they can be hosted to a face, or they can be hosted to nothing at all, and just given an elevation based on their insertion point. Therefore, if we had things like CAD backgrounds instead of Revit backgrounds, maybe we're doing a renovation job or something like that, we could still load this all into Revit as CAD backgrounds for each level, and then go place individual objects instead of being face-based attached to a wall or something like that. If I only have line work, I can still place that along that line edge, and I have that symbol or that 3D object placed at true elevation. So have full coordination across all MEP. Maybe even structural is also fully 3D, but maybe the architecture is going to just stay in flat 2D. And we can still have all of that referenced, have all the layers there needing to be turned on and off, referenced correctly, and still be able to plot finished drawings from Revit instead of having to comply and go back in time and do all that in CAD, and maybe our symbols don't match and things look different. We want consistency across all drawing sets. Therefore, we want to have as much of it done potentially in Revit as possible. So anybody that's still on the CAD side of the world, or kind of hybriding between CAD and Revit, but you really want to just jump into Revit full time, that would be a reason to jump into the new pack, because we can actually do that inside this new set of tools. Another thing that's new in here is we have a bunch of different backgrounds that are available to us. So if I was going to go to my Insert tab, Manage Links, and look at my background types, usually we have a placeholder for everything. And then when we get the real, say, architectural background, after we started a project, we would choose the placeholder file, hit reload from, reload that background in, and be able to use that fresh in here without changing any of our view templates, any of the other things that are being controlled globally through all of our views. So because of all of our placeholders and types, there's shell and core and shell versus interior, there's fire sprinkler, electrical, interiors, kitchen design, plumbing, structural, and there's even a site plan for civil. So all those things being preloaded, I don't have to actually do an insert Revit link and then go figure across all these hundreds of views and all my view templates that I have in here embedded. I'll figure out how to configure all that so it all looks the same across all my drawing sets. All I do is replace the file types that I need to replace, delete the ones that I don't. So these are all just showing that those haven't been replaced yet by those names. And once those are gone, that's all good. But my view templates are also quite extensive in here across all disciplines. I've even got demolition plans, call out plans, floor plans, working plans, design plans, section plans, all view templated out, all of them with the associated Revit links turned on and controlled. So because of those placeholders that I just showed, once you do a reload from, then that new file, say structure, comes in. That structure file is also already pre-embedded in the Revit links and being controlled either at custom or by host view in each of those views. And therefore, the things that should be turned on are on. Things that need to be turned off are typically off. So like an architectural plan, if you have site and plantings and entourage and things like that already pre-turned off for you, then every time you add a new Revit link, you don't have to come into all these view templates and do all the settings. You can still tweak them, but the majority of that work is already done for you. So across like 100 different view templates, and that means there's at least 100 different types of views, right? That's a lot of work that somebody would have to do in project setup that might take upwards of several days on most projects. Even the most complex project, I should be able to set up with this tool in less than 4 hours typically. So as long as I know what the basis of the project is, how many levels, how many building areas, scope boxes I need, that plus a couple tools in my CTC tools where the view creator is available to me to make view dependencies, things like that. Like I said, 4 hours, I can probably do the majority of any project and still have time left over. So those are huge things on the coordination side. So smart families, there's also a thing in those smart families where they can be hosted to any surface basically called an articulated Cartesian arm. That's a complete separator from anything that's out there that I know of out in the field. Nobody else has one that I know of. The MEP has that embedded as a family in all of the families that are loaded in here that would have normally been face-based. Essentially what it is, it's a tool that lets you kind of reassociate an object. So if I had, for instance, this air handling unit here, and I had a custom one from Train get popped in on my project. If I were to select that object and hit my, oops, I can't do my edit family on that guy, can I? This one. Selected a duct by accident. So this is my typical out-of-the-box kind of air handling unit, but I have air in and air outs and things as these little extrusions. I've got my power connector on this side. I got some hydronic piping on this side. If I wanted to switch my piping from this side to the other side, they're usually hosted to small extrusions, little 3D objects. And I would actually have to go place another object over there and then put a new connector on the other side because I couldn't reuse that one. With the Cartesian arm, these things are already placed on extrusions that are placed on these little face-based families. And then if I wanted to flip it from one side to the other or change it to this end, I would literally choose that extrusion in the arm and tell it which face I want that to go on. It's usually a rotation angle, right face, left face, front face, back face, bottom face. And literally I can change that in seconds just by doing a manipulation of a parameter and telling it how far away from the true origin point of the family those things exist in X, Y, and Z coordinates. So that literally moves those connectors any direction that I want. So if my air, instead of coming out of this end and going out and turning down through my building, is actually going through the floor, I just literally grab that piece and tell it based on parameters how to manipulate that and change. So if I did get an air handler from Train, and this is my base one, maybe I already got half the parameters in my schedule already filled out. I could just take this component, the actual 3D box, and say that's no longer a visible thing in my model, and then put in the nest of the object from Train, reconfigure my connector points basically to the places where they actually go on that real Train unit, and then load it or save it into my project, load into my project over the top of the existing one. All my parameters are exactly the same because it is the same family. I don't lose any data, and then I can fill out the rest of the data that I didn't have until now and not have to do any rework at that point. So workflows like that are things that I like to express in training as how do we do those things more efficiently and not actually waste a bunch of time. Replacing families with family nests for the 3D geometry, keeping all of our parameters intact, not having to reload parameters for an hour or more sometimes on something like that that doesn't schedule in my pack schedules because they were done by somebody else. The parameters don't match. Those are fantastic tools. Other workflow-based objects. If I go to a working view, for instance, under plumbing, one of the things we can see in here is plumbing groups for our assemblies for chases and things like that. This would be an area that takes a long time to typically generate. So you got a family and a carrier and another family. They're all back to back with each other. And then usually the majority of time when you're trying to put a fitting on there that actually attaches to a toilet, it actually takes more time because it doesn't have enough room to attach to a toilet. So if you put a fixture in there that's too close to the carrier, or it's not truly aligned to the carrier, it's going to take minutes at least just to do one connection. You do that times 20 toilets in a bigger bathroom. suddenly you've got 2 or 3 hours trying to configure this whole thing. Now at the bottom of my selection set here on my tools, I have model groups. Under model groups, I have some lighting ones. I have some basic mechanical pieces for kitchen fixtures, some boiler plant stuff, but the rest of these are all primarily plumbing. There's about 100 of them. And I do have fixtures that are potentially like wall back-to-back ADA, for instance, wall hung. So if this is being placed in my chase, I've got a fixture assembly with piping already attached. I've got components attached. My carriers are all attached. And if I ungroup that object, I have little reference planes on the families themselves. We're not actually changing out our family for the toilet. We're actually just saying that we're having a fixture with a pipe connection for the cold water and a pipe connection for the waste. And when I actually say I want to align that fixture to, say, the closest wall edge, maybe outside my chase there, with, come on, do that one more time. Not sure what I got there. Say if that's my wall edge and this is my face, I can just shoot that in place in seconds. If I had a Revit link of my architecture, and here's my center line of toilet. I do the center line of pipe, it snaps that into place, right? So as long as I don't bust between individual fittings or whatnot, if I don't stretch beyond a fitting or something like that, it's still not going to give me an error. It's just going to adjust all the piping. So if I placed 4 or 5 or 6 of these all in a row, align them together, I could literally take the connection points off of each of those, connect them together, and have an entire chase done in about 15 minutes. Usually when I talk about this in training classes, somebody will say an hour, some people will say 2 hours, really depends on the experience of the designer. But to have all these components already pre-built, already potentially in line with each other. So if I do another one, all hung back to back, and place that one in here. Not truly in line necessarily, but I could do an alignment command, center line to center line. Come on. Center line to center line, and move those in line with each other. They also already have detail groups assigned to them. So if I place these in my working view, but I do have like an enlarged bathroom plan call out, it's a 1/4 inch or something like that, I could come in here and attach a detail group that already exists as well, as all my tags already preset. So if I were to change that to, say, 1/4 for an actual regular plumbing plan, you can see all my tags actually look good. They're tagged correctly. If I move these components, those tags move with their elements. So once I've jumped into my enlarged plan, put all my tags on, I can come back into this view, and as they're aligned, ungroup them and literally play connect the dots with my plumbing objects. Connector to connector for my waste, connector to connector for my vent, connector to connector for my cold water. And then whatever pieces and parts I don't need, such as this little extension of my water line, if it's coming from the opposite end, pick on that, grab my fitting till there's no longer a T, it's just an elbow. I'm collecting fixture units on that pipe the whole way. So I come down here and select on that. That's my 20 fixture units, because each water closet is 5. So if I'm collecting fixture units on that, then I can also run pipe sizing routines and get that to size itself automatically as well. Literally, I can do a chase in 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on how many fixtures I've got actually connected on that run. Makes things super duper fast, really, really easy. And there's, as far as I know, there's nothing else like that unless you've done your own customization inside of Revit doing your own model groups. All these are all pre-made. There's individual objects, there's back-to-back objects, and there's lots and lots of kitchen fixture objects as well. So every kind of fixture type you can think of is already pre-made, pre-selected for which system type that it's on, and has a piece of pipe sticking out of each object to do connections with, and just connect them up, do your routing together, and you're pretty much finished with your plumbing plan. Way, way faster than you could fighting Revit and fighting the out-of-the-box tools. Let's see, let's go to, getting way too much open here for purpose of a demo. So let me go to my working views and go to, let's just say lighting, ceiling plan 01. Super quick features here. We do have track bars with independent track heads on each one. Track bars are built off of an NEC table, so the length of the track bar is controlling the load. We have ceiling fans, we have fixtures. All those fixtures, again, can be unhosted. So if you have the need in a large school or something where every classroom is exactly the same size, You build one out just the way you like it, do a selection set and copy and paste, 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 paste. Unhosted families will let you do that all day long and not have any warnings. If they're all face-based, attached to ceilings, duplex outlets attached to walls, every time you do a copy into the next room, it would say, sorry, you've lost your host. Now you need to rehost all those elements. And if you do the pick new host button in the ribbon, which is a pretty common thing, you're actually picking at least one more time on every object than it would be to actually place a new object. So time waster there if you're not having the ability to copy and paste objects and have them do what they're supposed to do right out the box. Unhosted gives you that capability. Regular hosts do not. One of the other things in our electrical plans, everything that is green has been circuited. Anything that is magenta knows that it has a logical circuit, but it doesn't actually have a fully made circuit in that case. So if I could do a create similar in this case, I'll do a place on face and stick that in there. And when it does that, it turns red, right? So what's the difference between red, green, and magenta? If I pick on the same object, tell it it needs power, it's going to turn magenta. It's got a logical circuit. It knows it is powered and can be attached to other objects, but it doesn't have a panel yet. When it does get a panel designation, not sure which one's which in this current demo set. I'm going to just drop it there and see what happens. That worked. So now it actually has a panel and a circuit number attached to it. When I actually add the panel number, automatically assigns the next available circuit, right? So by color alone, I can look through my entire model for anything not green and go, uh-oh, those objects are not circuited yet. So I have an instant visual check of everything in my model. I can also do the same thing with HVAC. There's analysis views in here that gives us the ability to look at whether I have flow. Analysis flow 01. So anything that's red currently has no flow. Anything that's blue has flow above 5 CFM. And there should be legends in here that have been turned off for some reason in my demo set. So if I do a duct legend and stick it there, there's my legend for color, right? Same thing on friction loss. I got color coding for friction loss, same idea. Duct legend, there's my values. If red is bad, I can come in and resize a piece of ductwork until it becomes in a range that I actually want it to be, right? So if I got a 14, I change it to an 18. Now I'm blue. If I'm within my two ranges I'm okay with at that point, I'm good. If I want it to be green, I can still go back and change it up to like 20. It'll turn green on that for me because of the values that are associated, and Revit being controlling those objects and understanding what the actual friction loss is. Same thing with velocity. More colors there. Another duct legend, drop that in. Those are all my velocities. If maybe orange is borderline, but red and maroon are bad, I can look through my entire model, find those places that are culprits that I need to go fix. Maybe throw away my ductilator and do this all visually in one model in one view very quickly. So if that's something that's interesting to you guys, again, get a demo from us. I'm going like super high level, super fast with a few fringe details at the moment, trying to make sure that I cover some of the good things in the pack. But literally, I can typically do a demo of a few hours on this product. So it's not necessarily something I can just breeze right over. If you're just electrical or just MP, an hour would probably work for a demo. If you're going to do a full MEP firm, up to 2 hours. And if you want to talk about extra tools, maybe even longer than that, or several sessions to show you everything we have under the hood. It's my time. I'm actually doing pretty well. I still have my 5 minutes on Hive and 5 minutes on Suites. So we will jump into Hive real quick and just show you what that is. So Hive is our content management system. Mine is a little bit messy when I jump in here. Essentially, we have the ability to sort everything by libraries. So if I were to jump into my home page here, it's just about done, I hope. There's my libraries. So if I have MEP products, 2019 products, 2018 products, all AutoCAD MEP, and we can store AutoCAD files, such as AutoCAD blocks and things in the system now, which is good. And we have a native interface into AutoCAD, so we can kind of do a right-click load and have an AutoCAD block go into an AutoCAD file. If it's something other than a Revit file or a Revit content piece or a piece of AutoCAD content, then anything else that's digital can go in there. So if you had PDFs, Word documents, Excel documents, cut sheets from manufacturers, anything like that, all those things digitally can be stored into Hive. It is a storage platform. It's not a live work platform. So don't start thinking like you can get Hive and then throw away BIM 360. That's not the case, but they do work really well together because you do have storage in the cloud for projects in that case with the BIM 360 side for the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And the other side of that would be the Hive interface to be able to get your content from anywhere. So if new versions of COVID pop up and everybody goes home, not in the office, people working on maternity leave that still need to do projects, working at the job site office or trailer or something like that, any place that you're at with an internet connection, you should be able to get content from it. So if I go to my out-of-the-box 18 MEP, all of our pieces of content that have been loaded should have images associated with those. You can make them 2D images, you can make them 3D images, you can even regenerate the images as you load them into the product. So those are all good. It's telling me content found. There's 72 pieces that have been loaded into this library. And if I select on one of those, like an oval tap straight, it's showing that it's in this library, plus my Bel Air library, so a username, and my Swivel Spaces library. It's got tags for duct fittings and mechanical. So those are ways we can filter out content. It has the added date, who put it in there, who did the last update on that object. So you got date and timestamp on both of those, when it arrived and when it was replaced. And then there's a 2018 and a 2020 version currently in my system of that particular object. So if I want to load that, I would right click and say load, or I can just double click on it and it would load and it would be on my cursor in my project, so I could actually place that. If you do a reload, it fully looks at the whole family and reloads it. If it's just to load whatever portion of that family I've loaded in at the current time, is reloaded in a second time, just a fresh load from the server at that point. Different types of objects, for instance, this intake hood has multiple types on it. This thing does not actually have a type catalog, but if I were to load this into my project currently, it would actually say, which of these types do you want to load? Do you want to load all of them? Or do you want to load just one or two or whatever? It gives us that option. As if I had a type catalog, I could load the family with only one or more types because Hive does that automatically without even building type catalogs. So people who are doing new family types and whatnot and trying to figure out how am I going to manage these, is it extra work for me to build a type catalog? Things like that can be done on the fly using Hive without even doing that extra work at all. Other things that are nice, we have parameters in here that can be shown if they've been indexed. So we could say show no parameters, or we could have certain parameters or all parameters in this list based on the object types we've been loading. So things like that, being able to drill down and find exactly the piece of content that we want, is very important. We have filters here as well. So if I add to my filter of my current library that I'm in, I could also say I want to find this grease hood, for instance. I also want to make sure that that grease hood is appropriate for maybe an industrial project. So if I have an industrial tag associated to that, maybe it only happens in industrial, then I'm going to do that search criteria of all industrial content in this library. When I hit apply, it'll pare that down and find just that data. And if this one doesn't have an industrial tag on it yet, I can go back in and manage my tags, assign tags. In this case, go down to my eyes, say industrial on that and select. So when I do go back to my filter and say, in this particular library, I also want to look for tags industrial, I hit the apply button. I wouldn't have had anything else without placing that first on that tag, but this is the only thing that shows up in that entire library that's also just an industrial only object. So being able to filter things becomes quite nice. Be able to find exactly the right content that you want. Pick on that content, see if there's other types, what parameters are associated to it. So if there's 27 different grease hoods, I could interrogate the types and the parameters first, choose the right one for my job, and not demand load all 27 of them and then pick the right one afterwards and then have 26 others in my project that mean nothing to me and are making bloat in my project, possibly causing it to slow down. Last thing in here, I have save searches. So things like Bruce's Electrical. This is a save search that I made for me. So when I do a save command, I can actually save a search that I've done in the past where I find just the content I want for a certain type of work. Go to that whenever I want to. If I tell it when I do the save that I want to include the entire organization, then I get this extra little human body little tag here that's up in the corner that says those ones show up for everybody. But the ones without that little tag in the corner are ones that I personally have built over time that have been working. So if I do double click that, it takes me back to the same search. It realizes what filters I had and takes me to exactly what I had open before. So in this case, I've got a detail and a logo and some other stuff in here, a title block. All those things had been loaded into Hive individually as one item after another. So I don't have to have a master details file or a master schedules file. I can literally load them all individually into Hive and extract them one at a time into my project. Not having to have a large template file, I can make that file size a lot smaller, make it more usable across all industry segments that we might serve. So if I do healthcare plus corporate plus educational plus aviation, I could have library information that shows me just that content for just those things, and that literally demand load everything all at once from that list. Right click, load it all, let it spin for a few minutes, and then that's loaded into my base project, which might be generic to all disciplines, but still be able to load in template information very quickly and have a certain project type loaded with just the things I want for that kind of work. So Hive is a very cool tool regarding those things. If I go back to my, one more thing, add request. We do have a add request button that should open up a web page. Looks like it's trying to do that in the background over here on a different screen. So when you open up a request, you have the ability to make requests of maybe the admins. So an end user, as long as requests have been turned on, have the ability to hit that button and do my requests. I have new requests, pending requests, approved, in progress, and rejected. So a way to track what's been done. So if I were to pick on my new, I would see what my thing was, any comments or attachments and things that are attached to this, all good. All requests, if I'm the admin, I might look at everything that's in place, maybe even put priority levels on each of these. So I know which ones need to be done first versus last, and be able to take care of those. And the dashboard is where I can see things like user statistics, Revit versions being used, project data, model summaries, how many work sets are there, phases, design options. I can track all this inside of Hive without any trouble whatsoever. I just put a little kernel file on each person's machine, and it dumps information into here for me automatically as they do saves and syncs. And I can even track that data over a period of time. Overview of our Hive CMS, we have 80 libraries, 140 tags, 23,000 pieces of content loaded in there right now. We can see favorites by user, user roles, search statistics over the past 24 hours, what terms are used most for searches, how many users per office are using these things, family categories, largest families, even down into the individual projects themselves. I can search a project and find out what the largest family in the project is by project. So when it comes down to, I pick through these on occasion and go, hey, I got some 15 megabyte families in this project where everybody else is keeping everything under 500K. I might go in there and interrogate those families, extract them, see if there's a way to make them smaller and maybe increase the speed of my project. All the named view types in here. So if I see that like half of my entire set of views in the entire thing is sections, maybe everybody's cutting way too many sections. They're not real. Maybe I go out and delete those and get some speed back or whatnot. The management side, this is pretty awesome. And all the tags that are being used, underused, not searched. I can find all that data out so I can optimize my Hive later on and clean that all up. So that's a quick overview on Hive. A demo on that usually lasts 45 minutes to an hour with questions. Definitely something that can increase your speed and your ability to get your projects out the door by getting the right content at the right time, not slowing down projects and having to purge them later, and having users go instead of 5 to 10 clicks to get to something in a file folder structure down to just a couple clicks inside a Hive environment, which can stay open on the side of your screen or a different screen all day long. Just saves tons and tons of time. So other things that we have here, I'm looking at my time again, still got 15 minutes. I think I'm good. Project Suite, tools people use all day, every day. View Creator for the setup of projects. Spreadsheet link literally gives you the ability to look into every Revit category in the entire project. Find that data that you actually want. So if it was, I want to look at all my air terminals and see how many of them still have 0 CFM, I can do that. If I wanted to look at a list of views in my project and realize that all my sheet names, for instance, had the word level 1, level 2, level 3, but architecture just did a change and suddenly we're back to L1, L2, L3 as our sheet naming convention or something like that. I could do massive changes to those objects by looking at it in a spreadsheet format, looking at just the parameters I want to see, making changes as if in Excel. I could even export that out to Excel, have somebody who's not a Revit user make massive changes for me, import that file back in, apply the changes, and have all the parameters in Revit be updated that have been affected, as long as they are changeable parameters. If they're parameters that are being driven by formulas and things like that, usually we can't do anything to those because they're being driven by other values. But we can usually change the values that drive the formulas, right? So if we know what those are, what they should be, we can make massive changes to the Revit database, which updates the families, which updates the schedules. Everything is smart at that point. Other piece on the pack, there are about 300 plus schedules and over 400 details that come with the pack as well. So anybody coming from a CAD background moving into Revit, that's just a huge launch point of potential pain and heartache for the next 2 to 3 years of not having to build all that content yourself and be able to do things smartly inside Revit. The word BIM is kind of a misnomer when people get started because they think, oh, we're going to do 3D modeling, right? And not necessarily a BIM model, which is also about information. So the parameters and the data that are associated, we have over 2,000 parameters in this pack, and they all integrate with all the shared parameters in these schedules and all the tags. So having to do all that kind of work would literally, if you had a good plan ready to go, would probably take you at least 10,000 hours just to do what's in the pack natively out of the box. So other things in our project suite, Schedule Excel would let you take an Excel schedule, bring it in as a schedule inside of Revit, place it on a sheet. So things that are not driven by parameters, I like to be able to bring in Excel spreadsheets and actually plot them, not have to do images or OLE type things or a pass through into CAD so that the CAD can have a CAD link into Revit and I print off of that. Don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to pass it directly from Excel into Revit. There's a parameter jammer tool that literally lets you take a schedule that's in your model, receive a piece of, say, manufacturer equipment, light fixture, mechanical equipment, whatever it is, match the schedule to the family and push the parameters from that schedule into the family. And then you can fill out that schedule correctly with that family type. So it's a huge time saver on the end user side. Somebody says, last minute, go get me that new boiler or hot water heater or rooftop unit, whatever it is. Drop it in place, put it where it goes, hit the parameter jammer, choose the right schedule, choose the right family, hit go, and it will automatically drive all those parameters into the proper place in the family. Updates tags, updates schedules, everything's good. There's also a little quick select tool under our free tools. That basically is a selection set tool. I can go find, let's say, all air terminals with less than 5 CFM. I could use parameters to go find that, make them a selection set. Maybe my base number is lowest value 50 CFM, go change it in my properties and have all that data changed very quickly based on selection set, which is a little bit opposite of how I do things with the spreadsheet link, because the spreadsheet link is going to show me all the regular parameters in a actual Excel spreadsheet format. So 2 ways to get to data very, very quickly. One of them with the quick select is even a free tool. If you download these, you get a 14-day free trial. And then after the free trial is over, the free tools are still yours thereafter. Powerful stuff is all here. Quick select is actually really powerful as well, but still in the free tool zone. Renumbering, MEP doesn't need to renumber doors and grids and levels and stuff. Usually that's all being done by architecture. But when we do details, probably the hardest thing about details is we move them all around on a page and then we get the ability of needing to renumber them all so they all read from one direction to the other. In most cases, you have to go find the view number, renumber it to something that doesn't exist, like 55, and then go find the one that is the one you're actually going to make, say number 1, turn that into a number 1, and then go down the list and change them from things that don't exist already to numbers that do exist in the order that you want them in. Renumbering has a quick little tool that actually says on detail numbers, choose a sequence, start with number 1, auto swap the detail number. So if the detail number already exists somewhere else on the same page, number 1, 2, 3, 4, take my number 13 that I want to be number 1 and swap it with that other one. So I don't have to renumber it 13A and then go to the number, or go back and find the number 1, make it 1A, go back to 13, make it number 1, and literally renumber everything twice. You don't want to do that. This tool does that automatically. So you can wipe through a sheet in about 30 seconds, go to the next sheet, continue on, and within 10 minutes, probably have your entire project done, even if you had like 15, 20 sheets of details. So fancy tools. More time, let's see. Family processor on the batch, the manager suite, sorry. Family processor has a tool that literally lets you swap out, change, add, delete parameters, and do that in batch. So if you want to do it on just one family, you can. Usually I do that as a test initially, find out if that worked and did exactly what I want in that family, maybe a test version of the family. Once I've got my settings right, usually I'll go in and batch an entire folder or an entire group of families all at once. I can do even more than one folder at one time. So for instance, if I had a brand new, say, lighting library that I download from, say, Lithonia, and I want to use those in the pack, I know that they aren't going to schedule correctly. So I go to my schedule, find out all the parameters that I'm going to use, and bring that back and say, now I want to do that to every family that I've got downloaded. Maybe there's 500 of them. Set my settings, delete the parameters I don't want, change the parameters I want to keep to the right ones, to the right shared parameter file. And then from that point on, say go after I've listed all the families I want to change. It will batch process all of them in one swath. So I don't have to just use parameter jammer onesie twosie on families in a current project. If I download entire good libraries from somewhere, but I want to make them pack worthy, I want to make them work with all of my schedules, I just need to know what those parameters are. I would use family processor to do that in batch. I also have a shared parameter manager. It lets me find duplicates in my shared parameter files. It lets me import shared parameters from other sources. So if GreenHack has its own file or something like that, I want to import some of those because they don't exist in my pack, I can use that to open them side by side, drag and drop the ones that I want, error check them, look for duplicates, look for find and replace with things I'm not sure of or whatnot, replace them with different names, rename stuff, regroup stuff. All can be done in that one tool. Always done from the bin management or power user side, not usually interns or new users to Revit, because with that kind of power, you can really bust a lot of stuff. So the last piece here is the bin batch suite. So any of the colors here are the designators between different suites, different software, different software, different software, right? So the pink ones, plotter and exporter, will let you push a button, assign plot settings, export settings for DWGs, IFC exports, Navisworks exports, and even in the same button, do all that in one swath. You can even save a settings file that says, on this healthcare project, I always export IFC, DWG, and PDFs. One button push, it does all that for you. You don't have to keep on going back to menus. And it does have a tool in there for a Windows-based scheduler, which means if you have the machine turned on and logged in, then Windows can do a schedule at midnight or some other time and have that done. So you'd have, say, PDFs done for the morning. Come in and validate that all those PDFs generated correctly, and then be able to say, I want to go back and maybe fix a couple extra sheets that we still had some troubles with or something like that. Take those, make them PDFs, put them in the batch of the set, stick them in Bluebeam or something like that, put them all into one big PDF file, and then send it out. So it can give you a lot more time if you have large projects to process. There's also a project upgrader and a family upgrader. I used to use that in my previous firm. Did about 4,000 families in about 2 days. Just did 6 or 8 folders together at one time, batched them, moved them into a new folder location. That actually has the ability to, say, upgrade them in the place that they are, or send them to a new file location and even recreate subdirectories and folders, which actually works really, really nicely. So I could copy everything from like 2018 to 2021, make that folder structure ahead of time, and then use the tool to replace the ones that are already there. Or I could just literally say, take the ones that are existing on my server and dump them to a new folder and have it create everything for me forward from that. Project processor also lets me purge stuff out of projects very quickly. Views, view templates, text styles, sheets, pretty much whatever I want. Even has wildcards in there. So I could say if I was trying to get rid of all my electrical stuff because I only want to keep mechanical and plumbing for some reason, maybe there's different contractors that I'm sending out models to, I can do those purge settings, save those settings, and next time I need it, load that file, run on a file or a group of files and have all that stuff purged out immediately, and then put it in my my transfer folder or my outgoing folder and send it off to whoever needs it. So lots and lots and lots of good tools. Depending on which roles you have, the green tools are probably the most effective for end users daily. managers. Always want to have the manager suite around, because if you're manipulating families and libraries, I would do that with the blue tools. Coordinators, people who are doing project management, things like that, trying to get projects out the door. Pink tools or magenta tools, and everybody in the firm, Hive CMS. MEPPP for anybody doing any design work, any engineering work, doing project setup. Fantastic group tools. And the MEPPP is a one-time purchase, as opposed to the others being regular pieces of software with annual maintenance currently. So those are some of the things we need to talk about today. I got about 3 minutes left, but I can stay a little bit longer today. Let's look at my chat window and see if there's anything specific that I can try to answer for you guys here today.
Hey Bruce, it's Nathan. I've been watching this chat stream the whole time. Let me curate this a little bit.
Sure.
Quick question was, what training classes are you referring to? Early on, you were saying, when I'm doing training, someone wanted to know, what are you talking about?
I see. Basically through ATG, not only do we sell software, right? So we have our Autodesk platforms, all the tools, the BIM 360. We have all the CTC tools, which I've showed today. But we also have technicians like myself that are available through your sales reps to consult directly with you and find out what your needs are. So when you do need a custom training class on the MEPPP or any of our tools, Autodesk products, all that is fair game to say, I need somebody that's an intern to be up to speed on Revit MEP. We can find out what their skill level is and actually build a class directly for that person or a group of people, right? So any type of training that you guys need that refers to anything that we support, we definitely want to be able to help you out with that. So any trainings that we do are typically going to be custom. They're going to be specific to you. They're based on hourly rates. So whether you have one person or whether you have 20, it's the same rate for your in training. Occasionally, some of our other disciplines do have open enrollment type trainings where everybody gets the exact same training. But that's not nearly as effective as custom training specific to you as your company. And we also do things like process assessments where we can look at your templates, your families, anything that you've done so far, and give you an honest assessment of where we think you're at, what additional tools you might need to use, what's going to give you improvements of time and speed and space. We don't have necessarily IT guys on staff that will tell you, what file server size that you need to store your documents on or things like that. But if you want to have that conversation, we have somewhat knowledgeable people that can have that conversation, as well as talking about BIM 360 storage there. Hive, for instance, for the content management, has no storage limits. You buy Hive as an end user license per user. So each person has their own named license basically to access the system. It's very cheap per user cost, and that it's half what most of the other companies charge. But you have unlimited server space. So you're never coming back to us as your service representative saying, my Hive ran out of space. Can you get me a quote on the next 10 terabytes or whatever it is? That's not a truth at all. It's a single source. You buy by number of users in your firm, and that's a single price element. And again, we can do training on Hive, all the tools I've showed today, all your Revit basics and fundamentals. I do custom family training, pretty much anything that you guys need to support the way you work, and even model new workflows and things like that that we've done in the past. We're trying to be your industry expert advisors in that case, which is really, really good when you engage us and look for things that you can improve on. We can usually help. Hope that answers the question.
Great. One other thing they asked was, someone's been using the MEPPP 2019 and they've really implemented it and customized it quite a bit. What happens when they get the new 2020 MEPPP? Do they just pick and choose what they want and add it to their older version? What's the benefit of upgrading?
Okay. In this case, with the MEPPP, they said on the CTC side that this is a complete rewrite of the pack. So in previous versions from like 18 to 19, there's some new stuff in there that was really good. And you could just take some of the content from your old 18 and add it to the 19 product, and still all the shared parameters and everything would talk to each other for the most part. You might find a glitch here and there, but for the most part, it was the same pack. In the new MEPPP, especially on the electrical side, NEMA, the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, has adopted a new standard, which actually gives you a true shared parameters file for manufacturers. That has been reworked and incorporated because the NEMA guys had been talked to by the PAC guys so that they would actually integrate similar or same shared parameters into the NEMA standard or vice versa. So the things that NEMA did on their own has been integrated in the PAC. The things that we did that NEMA liked is in the NEMA standard. So they actually truly talk to each other. They are the actual same shared parameters. So the new features there would be new NEMA compliant shared parameter file objects in the future will actually natively schedule in the PAC. So that's absolutely huge. So all the shared parameters on the electrical side that have changed are not compatible with the 19 PAC. So that's just going to be a given. They're not going to be the same. You'd have to reconfigure 19 content to work it with 20 content to make that work correctly. So if you do jump to the 2020 PAC, I would try to say start with the new PAC and work backwards. Things that you've generated on your own, bring those forward and see how you need to fix them. But anything that was a new object, I would not try to take an old object and try to rebuild it into new. It's probably not going to be successful unless you're really, really good at your customization. So everything else that's been done, if you've tweaked out all of your schedules and things like that, a lot of parameters have been changed and consolidated. So a lot of those things from the old PAC would not work correctly. Same thing vice versa. If you took your 19 PAC, upgraded it to 20, and then took 20 features and 20 objects, families, put them into your older 19 PAC template that's been upgraded to 20, a lot of those parameters are not going to be the same. So they would not schedule correctly as well. And some of your tags would be messed up and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge. I did a custom demo, well, two demos for the same client in the past few weeks. And after seeing all the new features, they went, yeah, give us a quote. And they had really, really, really customized immensely the 19 or actually a 17 version of the PAC, if I remember correctly. And it was tweaked out exactly the way they want. So I had to break the news to them that, yeah, you need to recreate a bunch of that stuff that you've already done. And by the time we were done with the discussion, that was something that they were probably willing to do, even though they had spent hundreds of hours doing their own customization on a previous PAC version. I think they're probably going to adopt the new PAC based on some of the workflow discussions that we had on things that they wanted to do that they couldn't do in the older version they were in. So again, that would be a custom demo, custom Q&A time. Maybe give us an hour and we can go through some of those things with you and find out what those challenges are and what the ramifications are. If you try to merge them together, it's probably going to be a bad fit. If you take the new PAC and do some adoption to the things that you've already done before, it may not take you near as long as it did before, potentially, but there'll be a discussion to have.
Mm-hmm. To shoot off that note, so Justin, Chris, and Art have been asking us excellent questions throughout. And what's their next step? Should they reach out to their customer service rep, call sales out of the blue? What would they do to get further questions answered and get one of these personalized Q&A times with us?
Yep. If you know who your sales rep is, go ahead and contact them directly and say, hey, we were on that webinar this past week. When's the available time that we can get together and do a custom demo and get questions answered on the newer version of the PAC? If you don't have a sales rep, if you're brand new to ATG and seeing us for the first time, you can contact us through our website, atgusa.com. Find a customer service or contact us kind of a button and fill in the web form, or find the phone number on the site and just call in, and we will direct you to your appropriate sales rep for your territory, and we will hook you up and find out ways to get a hold of you with the proper amount of time to go through what questions you might have and seeing the PAC for real, as opposed to the quick overview that I did today. I did some things here that were very specific to certain disciplines and whatnot, so that even non-executive level but end users would see a little bit of something that might pique your interest right away. But there is a lot more behind this thing. So if you saw at least one thing you liked, give us a call and we'll spend more time with you for sure.
And the same thing with pricing. You know, if you've got upgrade questions, you know, how much does any of this cost? It's really the salespeople you need to talk to about that so they can give you a custom quote.
Yep. The The new version is a full rewrite, and it is more expensive than previous upgrades from my understanding. But if you do have a previous version, there will be an upgrade path for you, so you're not paying full price for it.
Okay, and would a custom demo be with you, Bruce, specifically?
It can be.
It can be.
Sure.
Sure.
If people request me by name, sometimes yes, but I do have other team members like Nathan and a few others out there that are getting really good experience with the pack as well. And sometimes we need to make sure that all of us get the same experience level talking with our client base so that we're all really good at the pack, as opposed to just saying, well, we have an expert and you always need that person. I would say that most of us are expert enough to do a good demo of the pack at the moment. And if you feel there's any discrepancy there whatsoever, do it where I could be on the call at the same time with any of our other reps and sit there together, and we'll cross-train at the same time we talk to you for anything that one person doesn't know over the other or whatnot. We're more than willing to do that as well, because we need everybody on the same page.
Yep. All right, that's all I see in the chat. Are there any last minute questions? Type them in real quick.
Yep. If not, again, contact us at ATG USA for any further questions, demos, things like that you want to see. Always be expecting, even if we say just an MEPPP demo, if you don't know stuff about the BIM project suite or the manager suite, we can include discussion points on those as well. I'd love talking to anybody that I can, whether it's one firm or one person firms or all the way up to 500 plus. Doesn't make any difference to me whatsoever. I'm about making sure that clients are being represented correctly, that you get your questions answered, that you can actually make good decisions with your own budgets, and know that you're in good hands when you're talking to ATG techs like myself.
Okay, I see that Carlos just raised his hand. Carlos, make sure you click on that chat button at the bottom of your screen and type in your question there. Unless you were just waving goodbye.
Yep. I was gonna say we went a couple of minutes long here, but I think I did a pretty good job trying to hold the time anyway, right? So
there's just so much great information. I think you did good, Bruce.
Yeah, I can get long-winded. So my longest MEP demo in the past has been over 3 hours at an AU booth. So, and that's with one group of people. So I do have a ton of stuff I can talk about, but trying to nose it all down into the best talking points at the moment, it's always hard for me to pick and choose which ones I want to go after.
It is. Hey, take a look in the chat at Carlos's question.
I want to get MMP version of that CTB. As this one works as architectural versions of CTB. Are we talking about a CTB as a template file or something? What's CTB? That's what I need to know. CTB. Yeah, I kind of wish we had like an architectural template file that was like the MEPPP for architecture and maybe structure. That's not currently something that we offer at the moment, where it's all pre-templated out. But in the case that you do have a template that you're working on and trying to figure out, and maybe you're not the best template guy or gal for whatever reason, with our consulting services at ATG, we do consult on basically making your templates better and things like that as well. So if you wanted to get with a sales rep and get with an architecture, MEP, or structure specialist, do a discovery call and say, this is what I have now. This is what I would like it to be. I don't have the time to do that, or I don't have the resources or talent to do that for whatever reason. Offload that onto us. See if we can give you, hey, it would take us about 20 hours to make that a better template, and this is what you would get out of it. Let us do that quote and find out how to save you that time so you can go back to work on projects, and the next time you need a new project to start, you have a new template that actually has better content, better view templates, better view and sheet naming capabilities and things like that get you off the ground much faster. And any content issues or whatnot, we can consult on whether Hive is a good thing for you to actually store data. If you have enough in there that's really hard to find or whatnot, all those questions can be answered with discovery calls and demos through ATG.
Right. So Carlos, yeah, you CTC, not CTB. Call our sales team, especially if you need architectural questions. Bruce and I are on the MEP side. The MEP Productivity Pack is all MEP focused. All these CTC tools 80% of them are for all MEP, civil, structural. Everybody can use them. Some are specific. But to get that personal time with one of us to just talk and ask questions and find out what solutions you need, give the salespeople a call or your customer service rep a call, and go ahead and get something scheduled that way, and we can address them more directly in that forum.
Absolutely. All right, if we don't have any more questions, you guys can jump off the call and get back to your work lives. If you have any further questions, we'll stay on here for a few more minutes, and then we'll drop off as people are finally ready to exit. For those people waving at us, thank you. Appreciate your time today. Anything else we can help you with, let us know.